This story is one that many of you are very familiar with, but I simply couldn't resist making a video about this unfortunate girl. Junko Furuta was born in Misato, Saitama Prefecture, on January 18, 1971. She lived with her parents, an older brother, and a younger brother. As a teenager, she attended Yashio Minami High School and worked part-time at a plastic manufacturing factory starting in October 1988, after school. She worked to save money for a trip she had been dreaming of taking after graduation. Junko also got a job at an electronics store where she planned to continue working after finishing school. In high school, teachers spoke highly of Furuta, as she had excellent grades and rarely missed classes. She was a popular girl, often described as very sweet. Junko dreamed of becoming a singer, a Japanese idol. In Japanese pop culture, an idol is typically a young media personality, often in their teenage years, with an attractive and often innocent image. Idols are a distinct category of Japanese celebrities, representing a pure and idealized image and serving as an unattainable object of adoration for devoted fans. Some also believe that Japanese people view idols as little sisters or sweet girls living next door. On the night of her abduction, Junko Furuta was planning to go home to watch the final episode of the then-popular drama Tanbo. Her abductors were 18-year-old Hiroshi Miyano, 17-year-old Joe Ogura, 16-year-old Shinji Minato, and 17-year-old Yasushi Watanabe. In court documents, their names were later anonymized as A, B, C, and D, respectively. At the time of the crime, they used the second floor of Minato's house for hangouts. As chimpura, juvenile delinquents, misfits, and members of the Yakuza, they were involved in petty theft, extortion, and sexual assaults. The leader of the criminal group was Miyano. He had a troubled history dating back to elementary school, where he was caught stealing and vandalizing school property. In April 1986, he was admitted to a private high school in Tokyo, but he was expelled the same year. Following this, he continued engaging in increasingly serious criminal activities. At the time of the events described, he lived with his girlfriend, the older sister of Yasushi Watanabe. Miyano worked as a tile setter to save money for their wedding. However, dissatisfied with his low wages, Miyano became further involved in criminal activities and occasionally committed rape. His behavior eventually led to his girlfriend losing interest in him and ending their relationship. On November 25, 1988, Miyano and Minato wandered around the Misato area with the intention of robbing and assaulting local women. At 8:30 p.m., they noticed Junko Furuta riding her bicycle home after finishing her work shift. Acting on Miyano's orders, Minato knocked Furuta off her bicycle and fled the scene. Miyano approached Furuta under the pretense of being a concerned witness to the incident and offered to escort her home to ensure her safety. Gaining her trust, he then raped her in a warehouse and later at a nearby hotel, threatening to kill her if she resisted. From the hotel, Miyano called Minato and their other friends, Joe Ogura and Yasushi Watanabe, boasting that he had just raped a girl. Reportedly, Ogura suggested that Miyano keep her captive for a while so that more people could take advantage of her. This criminal quartet already had a history of gang rapes. They had recently abducted and assaulted another girl, whom they later released. Around 3 a.m., Miyano dragged Junko Furuta to a nearby park, where Minato, Ogura, and Watanabe were waiting. They discovered her home address by looking through a notebook in her backpack. They told her they now knew where she lived and threatened that Yakuza members would kill her entire family if she tried to escape. The four men beat her, carried her to a house in the Adachi area, and gang raped her. This house, owned by Minato's parents, soon became the group's regular meeting place. On November 27th, Junko's parents reported her missing to the police. To prevent further investigation, the abductors forced Junko to call her mother 3 times, reassuring her that she had run away from home but was staying with friends and was safe. They also coerced Furuta into halting the police investigation. How? Minato introduced her to his parents, presenting her as his girlfriend. The criminals abandoned this pretense only after it became clear that Minato's parents would not report Junko's presence to the authorities. Later, Minato's parents claimed they did not intervene out of fear of their own son. On the night of November 28th, Miyano invited 2 more boys to Minato's house, Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ahara, who would later be identified during the investigation as E and F, respectively. They went upstairs to the room where Junko was sitting, dressed in a long-sleeved shirt and a skirt Miyano had stolen from a clothing store a few days earlier. They drank cough medicine as if it were a drug, acting as though they were high. Furuta tried to escape, screaming in terror. Miyano grabbed her by the legs while Ihara pressed a pillow over her face. The noise woke Minato's parents, who came to check what was going on. However, Minato assured them through the closed door that nothing serious was happening. The group then proceeded to gang rape Furuta. By this point, she had fallen into a state of shock, staring blankly at the ceiling. The gang held Junko Furuta captive for 40 days, during which they beat, raped, and tortured her in unimaginable ways. They also invited other men and boys to entertain themselves with the captive. According to their statements, the 4 abductors shaved Furuta's pubic hair, forced her to dance naked, and made her masturbate in front of them. They left her semi-naked on the balcony during the cold nights. The abusers inserted various foreign objects into her vagina and anus, including burning matches, metal rods, and bottles. They forced her to drink large quantities of alcohol, milk, and water. She was also made to smoke multiple cigarettes at once and inhale paint thinner fumes. Mayano frequently set Furuta's hands and feet on fire using lighter fluid. By the end of December 1988, a month into her captivity, Furuta was in a state of extreme exhaustion. She was given very little food and, eventually, was only fed milk. Due to her severe injuries, infections, and burns, she lost the ability to go downstairs to use the bathroom and was left lying on the floor of Minato's room, utterly debilitated. Junko Furuta's appearance drastically changed due to the relentless abuse. Her face became so swollen that it was nearly impossible to recognize her former features. Her body was extensively mutilated and emitted a rotting smell due to infections, causing the 4 abductors to lose sexual interest in her. Seeking to satisfy their urges, they abducted and gang raped a 19-year-old girl who, like Junko, had been returning home from work. On January 4, 1989, after losing a game of mahjong the previous night, Mayano decided to take out his anger on Junko Furuta. He poured a flammable liquid over her body and set her on fire. Furuta tried to extinguish the flames, but gradually stopped reacting. All 4 abductors continued to beat her, drip hot wax onto her face, and place 2 short candles on her eyelids. They forced her to drink her own urine. After being kicked, she collapsed onto a stereo system and began convulsing. Due to severe bleeding and pus oozing from her infected burns, the abductors wore plastic bags on their hands while handling her. They continued beating her and dropped a heavy iron exercise ball onto her abdomen multiple times. Reports indicate the beating lasted for 2 hours. Eventually, Junko Furuta succumbed to her injuries. Less than 24 hours after her death, Minato's brother called to inform him that Furuta showed no signs of life. Fearing punishment for murder, the group wrapped her body in blankets and stuffed it into a travel bag. They then placed the body in a 210-liter drum and filled it with cement. Around 8 p.m., they transported the drum and eventually left it in a concrete mixer in the Kodo area of Tokyo. During their plan, Furuta had mentioned several times that she regretted not being able to watch the final episode of the drama Tanbo. Mayano found a videotape of that episode and placed it in the travel bag with her body. He later explained that he didn't do this out of remorse, but because he didn't want her ghost to haunt him. Less than a month later, on January 23, 1989, Mayano and Ogura were arrested for the gang rape of a girl they had abducted in December. On March 29, 2 police officers visited the pair for questioning after finding women's underwear in their homes. During the interrogation, Mayano mistakenly believed one of the officers knew about his involvement in Junko Furuta's murder. Thinking that Ogura had already confessed, Mayano revealed where Furuta's body was hidden. Initially, the police were confused by his admission, as they were investigating the murder of another woman and her 7-year-old son, which had occurred 9 days before Furuta's abduction and remained unsolved. The next day, officers discovered the drum containing Furuta's body. Her identity was confirmed through fingerprints. On April 1, 1989, Ogura was arrested for sexual assault and later rearrested for Junko Furuta's murder. Following Mayano's confession, Watanabe, Minato, and Minato's brother were also arrested. Several other accomplices who participated in the abuse and rape of Furuta were formally identified, including Tatsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ahara, who were charged with rape after their DNA was found on and inside the victim's body. The court initially withheld the defendants' identities due to their status as minors at the time of the crime. However, journalists from Shuken Bunshun revealed their names, arguing that the severity of the crime meant the accused did not deserve anonymity. All 4 defendants pled guilty to bodily injury resulting in death rather than murder. In July 1990, the lower court sentenced Hiroshi Mayano, the gang's leader, to 17 years in prison. He appealed the sentence, but Tokyo High Court Judge Ruji Yanase added 3 more years, bringing the total to 20 years. This sentence was the second longest in Japan for someone under 20 years old, short of life imprisonment. Mayano was 18 at the time of Furuta's murder. After his release, Minato moved in with his mother but was rearrested in 2018 for attempted murder after assaulting a 32-year-old man with a metal rod and slashing his throat with a knife. Yasushi Watanabe, initially sentenced to 3 to 4 years in prison, had his sentence increased to 5 to 7 years. He was 17 at the time of the murder. For his role in the crime, Joe Ogura served 8 years in a juvenile prison before being released in August 1999. After his release, he took the surname Kamisaku after being adopted. He reportedly bragged about his role in Furuta's abduction, rape, and torture. In July 2004, Ogura was arrested for assaulting Takatoshi Isono, an acquaintance he suspected of being romantically involved with his girlfriend. Ogura tracked Isono down, beat him, and forced him into his truck. He took Isono to his mother's bar in Misato, where he allegedly assaulted him for 4 hours. During the attack, Ogura repeatedly threatened to kill Isono, boasting that he had killed before and gotten away with it. Ogura was sentenced to 7 years in prison for the assault on Isono and has since been released. Ogura's mother allegedly desecrated Furuta's grave, claiming that the deceased girl had ruined her son's life. In 2004, Mayano was denied parole but was released from prison in 2009. In January 2013, he was rearrested on charges of fraud but was released later that month due to insufficient evidence. Nobuharu Minato, now Shinji Minato, who was initially sentenced to 4 to 6 years in prison, had his sentence increased to 5 to 9 years on appeal by Judge Ruji Yanase. Minato was 16 at the time of the murder. Minato's parents and brother were not charged. Furuta's parents were distressed by the sentences handed down to their daughter's killers and won a civil suit against Minato's parents, in whose home the crimes were committed. Reportedly, Mayano's mother paid Furuta's parents 50 million yen, approximately $425,000, in restitution, as ordered by a civil court, after selling their family home. Furuta's funeral was held on April 2, 1989. In a eulogy, one of her friends said, "Jun-chan, welcome back. I never thought we would see you like this again. It must have been so painful, so much suffering. The joy we all shared during the school festival suited you so well. We will never forget you. I heard the principal gave you your graduation certificate, so we all graduated together. Please, rest in peace." Her prospective employer gifted her parents the uniform she would have worn for the job she had accepted. The uniform was placed in her coffin. At the school's graduation ceremony, the principal posthumously awarded Furuta her high school diploma, which was given to her parents. The site near where Furuta's body was found has since been redeveloped into a park in Adachi, Tokyo. At the time, Japan was grappling with concerns about a surge in violent crimes attributed to the influence of the United States, often referred to as an American disease. This crime inspired at least 3 books. In 1995, director Katsu Matsumura made a film about the case, starring Eugene Katagawa, a member of the musical duo Yuzu, as the gang leader, and Mai Sasaki as Furuta. The crime also inspired the 2004 film Concrete. Mayano's name was changed to Tatsuyo Tsuji, played by actor Sasuke Takaoka, while Junko Furuta was portrayed by Japanese adult actress Miki Komori. At the time of her brutal murder, which shocked the world, Junko Furuta was only 18 years old.